Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I want to talk about some interesting news that came up in this past week, and a story that a lot of you guys messaged me about, both on YouTube and on Twitter, just to kind of, see what my thoughts were regarding it. So I want to talk about it because it is kind of significant. It is and isn't. We'll get into it. It's definitely interesting, though. And so the big story is that David Poldfelt, who is the managing director at Massive, kind of the top guy there, is stepping down after 16 years of work at the studio. And so I believe when reading into it, it was about 13 or so of those years were as the managing director, as his current position, starting back in somewhere in 2007, 8, or 9. And there were a few years working there prior. So that is certainly a very long time to hold that position. You know, I don't hold it against him that he wants to move on to something else, but it is certainly a very interesting time for him to make this move and for this whole thing to go down. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today. He was really around during the original Div 1 era when that was all going down, when they got acquired by Ubisoft. And so we're just going to talk about kind of what all this means, because I think it is pretty interesting. So to basically get into it, this was first reported from what I found by Axios. I will leave a link to their article in the description down below, but you can find a bunch of other publications that talked about this as well. And then it was also announced by Massive's official account on Twitter. So this is certainly out there. It's not some sort of report or leak. It's definitely a true thing that has happened over these past few days. Here's some of the details. He leaves on July 1st, which is just in about 2 weeks. And he's going a 6-month sabbatical. So he is staying at Ubisoft. He's just moving on from this position, which I think is actually an even more interesting revelation than if he were to just be retiring or maybe leaving for another company. It means that this is a upward position move for him than just leaving for some other unknown reason. So it's definitely very interesting. And like I said, he's taking on a more corporate position at Ubisoft after that 6-month break. And that is yet to be disclosed what kind of position that is going to be. So like I said, that's very interesting because Massive is at kind of a precipice right now, right? They have a lot of stuff going on and they're kind of at the crux of expansion. There's a lot of things happening. Avatar is coming out next year, as was just announced at E3 and Ubisoft Forward. Star Wars was more recently revealed, and production is certainly ramping up for that with kind of the core Division 2 team. And then speaking of, Division 2's engines are kind of reigniting with Yannick taking over as associate creative director, and they're kind of hiring a whole new team along with Ubisoft Bucharest to kind of make all that new content and maybe stuff after that. We don't know yet. So there's a lot going on. And as the managing director of Massive, it just is very interesting to me that at a time like this, when probably more than ever things are happening at your studio, you want to move on. So I just find that to be very interesting. There's a book that this guy wrote, David Poldfelt wrote, called The Dream Architect. And a lot of the info I know from this is from Bon Diesel. He covered it in one of his EchoCast podcasts a few months back. I will try and find that and link that below so you can go listen to it if you're curious. Or you can find the book on Amazon or a lot of other places. And basically the synopsis of it that I remember is that he basically talks about his journey into the gaming industry and how he started out at Massive, talks a lot about the Division 1 and how integral Division was to Massive's success. And then it talks also a lot about Avatar, but as I understand it, there isn't a lot of Division 2 talk in there, which is kind of interesting considering he was certainly around for when that was all going down. So it does, it's some interesting stuff. But the main thing I wanted to mention from this was that, and I'm paraphrasing for sure because I haven't read the book, one of the big quotes he put in there was that his main goal for Massive and at his position as managing director, he really had dreamed one day of helming 2 IPs at Massive, so 2 different franchises, IPs as intellectual property, under their own engine that they own. And that is something that they have now achieved. They have now 3 IPs. They have The Division, they have Avatar, and they have Star Wars, which I guess Star Wars might not have been announced for yet. At least Division and Avatar are both going to be on the Snowdrop engine, which is Massive's engine that they, I believe, created for the Division 1. Maybe not. I'm not sure on that one. But it is their own engine. They're both under that, and I assume Star Wars is going to be as well. So he achieved his dream, and then immediately kind of dips right afterwards. I mean, I won't say immediately, because if behind-the-scenes information is to be believed, then I believe they began working on Star Wars in kind of late 2019, kind of around the time Warlords launched, because that's when we saw Thylander and Julian and Drew and a lot of these prominent people kind of move out of the spotlight of Division. And while we didn't know back then that Star Wars was a thing, that's kind of when it was believed the deal was signed and all of that stuff was going on. So sure, he's been around for, I guess you could say, a year and a half since Star Wars happened. But it still seems like a bit of odd timing, in my opinion. According to these reports and to what the Massive Twitter account posted, this change and this leave, I guess for him, things seem amicable between him and Ubisoft. It's not like clear if he initiated the ask to want to move on to a different position, or if Ubisoft maybe prompted him to do that. It did seem like he asked for things to change last fall, is what I read in Axios, but I don't think it's fully clear if it was 100% his will or his wishes for this to happen, or if Ubisoft maybe kind of prompted him and then he thought about it and then moved on it. That's not really all clear at this point. But of course, the big question from all of this, and kind of the big important thing that happens because of him moving on, is who is his successor going to be? Who's going to take over as the managing director of Massive Entertainment, which for Division fans, I think is kind of a big deal. And the answer is, it's unknown. Apparently the new director will be starting in October, so there's going to be a little bit of a break in between when David leaves and this new guy comes in. The articles and Ubisoft themselves say they can't reveal who this person is yet because of their current employer, but the big important note is that they are not from Ubisoft. And I think this is good. This makes me kind of excited because it means a few things. One, Ubisoft can't really slot in, well, I mean, they still could, but they can't slot in someone from their own company who may be unfit for the job, right? Some sort of, higher up son isn't going to be taking the place of David Poldfelt in a role that they may be unprepared for or unfit for. And hopefully this person won't just have a corporate mindset, I think a lot of the people that Ubisoft corporate may first think of when they're trying to fill this position. They can't just take someone from their own roster who may not be fit for the job. They're hiring an outside person who hopefully has some sort of relevant experience. And then kind of the second thing is this could be someone big. Massive is a pretty prime studio right now, and that job that David is leaving vacant is probably pretty coveted. And so, I'm not all that knowledgeable about different studios around the world who make all the popular games these days, but I wouldn't be surprised if this person is coming from a reputable and known studio and company. And so it could be pretty cool. They could really bring some valuable things to the table that Massive could need in this time of expansion when they're really on their rise to be one of the leading studios around the world, I would say. Could things turn out poorly with this switch into management? Absolutely yes. The position that Massive is in right now certainly makes this a risky play regardless. Like I was saying, I still think it's odd that David chose this time to leave his position at Massive, because it really is at a point where it needs that leadership to be able to guide these games out. And once Division and Avatar and Star Wars are all out on the market and they're all being supported, then I think things will be a little bit more stable. But at this time where they're developing two of these massive IPs from Disney, it's certainly a critical moment and they really need to get things right. And so I hope this transition goes smoothly, and I hope this new person that's coming in has the proper experience to guide this expansion. But I guess we'll really just have to see. I certainly hope it all turns out for the best. Regarding my thumbnail, is Division in danger? I don't think it really is. It's not like the director here has sole control over what happens, and Ubisoft has already committed to building a franchise and a universe for the Division. But I have to imagine that for someone coming into this role, out of the properties of Avatar, Star Wars, and the Division, some sort of industry titan, just assuming that's who's going to fill the role, or at least someone who has experience in the field, probably sees Division as the least exciting IP in that portfolio. It's the one with the least shine, I guess the least potential for a big splash compared to, these mega franchises like Avatar and Star Wars. My biggest hope is that besides a games-oriented person, not with a corporate mindset coming into this role, is that this new director values the legacy of the Division and gives the team the proper support and resources they need. I'm not really sure what the relationship or the correlation is between that kind of stuff and higher up in Ubisoft. I don't know who really makes those full decisions, but if there is some sort of pull by the director, which I assume there is, then I certainly hope that he gives the Division the proper support and the love and everything that it deserves, because at the end of the day, you can't really argue against the fact that without the Division franchise, Massive would not be in the position that they are today to be constructing and owning these properties like Avatar and Star Wars. It's really a big deal, and you can't say that wasn't because of the Division, because it absolutely was. But I think that is going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you can be updated every time I upload. Let me know what your thoughts on this story is down below. I'm very curious kind of what people's general feelings are right now about this. And what are your expectations for the new director that is going to come in and fill David Pofelt's shoes? Do you have any candidates that you think would be a good fit? Do you maybe know someone in the industry who you feel like could possibly be taking this role? Again, I'm not really knowledgeable and all that kind of stuff, so if anyone does have more insight than myself, I would certainly be very interested to read any of that you have to share down below. Again, I will leave a link to the Axios article that first broke this story, as well as try and leave a link to Bon Diesel's podcast where he kind of talked about his review and kind of synopsis of The Dream Architect, which again is David Pofelt's book, and it has some very relevant and not very well-known information about The Division and some of that cool stuff. If you ever, are inclined to read it, I think it is a very cool read for someone who is a fan of The Division and of Massive. So certainly give that a read or give his podcast a listen if you're curious about that. But yeah, guys, I think that's going to do it. Again, thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. And until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.